So what did all those songs that I just played have in common? They're all in the key of, you guessed it, they're all in the key of D. Today, day 3 of the 14-day challenge in you learning how to play in all the keys on the guitar, we are talking about the key of D. The chords, the scales, and everything else, and some songs, some familiar songs that you can use right now to start playing in the key of D right away. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so the key of D is similar to the key that we did yesterday, key of G, and that it contains almost all the same notes except for one new note. Now, if you go all the way back to day 1, we talked about the C major scale, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Key of G is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then G. It has that F sharp, and then it goes to G. And we talked about the half steps and whole steps between the notes are going to be different. So, for example, in the G scale, the F sharp wasn't in the key of C, but it now is in the key of G. Now, when you go to the key of D, you keep the F sharp, but now we're going to raise another note. So we've got D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. New note is C sharp and D. So if you start on the D string and construct this scale on the D string, you have D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and you would need one more whole step, C sharp, to go to D. Because remember the formula was whole, whole, half, whole step in the middle, whole, whole, half. So whole step, that's D to E, E to F sharp, and then half step from F sharp to G, and whole step to A, whole step to B, you need one more whole step to C sharp, and then you have your half step to D. So I would then, once you can play the scale up the neck or up the string, the D string like that, I would actually then take it down the string in a very similar way as you took it up. All right, and then start figuring out how to do this scale on other strings. For example, like the B string. If we started the 3rd fret and we went D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, and then back down. Okay, this is going to start to show you a map of the fingerboard and where all the notes that you need in this key are. Now, the chords that are commonly in this key obviously start with the chord of D. And the next chord in the key of D would be E minor. And if you remember back, the key or the chord of E minor was also in the key of C and in the key of G. So it's one of the chords that it has in common. D was also in the G scale or the key of G. So there's always going to be at least 1 or 2 chords in every key that go from the key that we were previously talking about to the new one. Just chords that are similar. And that's where we can start to pull from those other keys when we want to create like unique chord combinations to create unique chord progressions. We'll talk more about that as we get through this challenge. So in the key of D, we have D, E minor, F sharp minor, which is a new chord in this key, G, A, and B minor. B minor was also in the G key of G, obviously, as well as G. A is one of the unique chords now to the key of D. But overall, the first chord in that key is D. Well, then the 4th chord, because lately we've been talking about 1, 4, 5. Well, 1, 4, 5 in the key of D is D, D, E, F, G to A. Okay, 1, 4, 5. And so a lot of songs are based just on those 3 chords. For example, one of the songs that I played in the intro, Bab Moon Rising, basically it consists of these chords. So you've got the D chord, to the A, to the G, to the D. And I do like a little blues move, which is just taking my pinky and putting it on the 4th fret of the G string to give it like a little blues shuffle. Then I go to the G, that would be a 1, 5, 4, 1. And you do repeat that, so that you go 4, 1, 5, 4, 1. And one reason the numbering system is so helpful, not to mention the fact that you can use it to transpose it to other keys, but because it starts to train your ear as to what a 1 sounds like, what a 4 sounds like, and what a 5 sounds like. Now, in some of these chords, we can move some of the notes around to get variations on these chords. And actually talk about this in my beginner course that's available on School of My Classroom, skool.com/unleash your inner guitar hero. And if I take the pinky and I put it on the 3rd fret of the high E string, I get a D sus4. I can then take it off to get a regular D, take the 2nd finger off and get a D sus2, and go back to the regular D. This is a very common move with this chord and this key. And also on the A chord, I can go from an A sus4 to an A sus2 to an A. And you find this in songs like Breakfast at Tiffany's by Deep Blue Something. So, and it goes to a G chord, but really it goes to a G with the B in the bass, or G/B, which there's your B note, A, B. So you're putting the B note in the bass of that chord, and then to an A sus4. Now an A sus4 is just, again, raising that 3rd finger to the 3rd fret on the B string. And so it goes from a D sus2, D sus4 to a G with the B in the bass to A sus4. And that's in essence, that's that song. Now, the Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran, that one again starts with the D chord. And so for Thinking Out Loud, I'm actually going to take my 1st finger off and hammer it on. And he does this finger style. Now, I'm using a little trick that's known to some people by just taking the pick that I was already holding and holding it underneath my finger like this so that I can play finger style. But basically, I'm going to hammer this on. Okay. And so, hammer that 1st finger on. And then the F sharp in the bass. Now, interestingly, Ed Sheeran does this. He does his D over F sharp like this, which is another common way of doing it. And then he goes to a G. And he puts this little lick in there. And every time I watch him, he does it a little bit differently. Sometimes he's just like plopping his finger over there. But basically it's... And so he's kind of hammering that on. Sometimes he ends up on the 4th fret of the D string, but largely he's just hammering onto the 4th fret of the G, which is that B note. That's that same B note that we were doing with this. With the Creedence Clearwater Revival, Bad Moon Rising. So he's, so again, so sort of plucking that with the fingers and hammering that 1st finger on to the F sharp, a D with the F sharp in the bass, G to A, and then, and I like to add my own variation on that. So I'll hammer it on and pull it off, or I'll then also sometimes go to the 4th fret on the D, and it happens kind of fast. Don't worry about that. You can't do that yet. It's kind of a little bit of an advanced move, but don't worry about it. Just practice. Just hammering on that finger. And then once you can get that, by the way, you can go to the Ed Sheeran approved version of that D over F sharp. By the way, all the chords that I'm giving you right now are going to be, I'm going to put diagrams within the group on School so you can see them on there. But I just like that thumb over to grab that F sharp for the D. You know, I learned that by learning Hendrix tunes, so it just works for me. Okay. Now there's another section of the song. The next section of the song actually goes to E minor. We talked about that being one of the chords in this key. So he basically goes from E minor to A or A7. A major is here, A7 is here. So A major has the 3 fingers on the second fret of the D, G, and B strings, whereas the A7 usually taking one of those fingers off, so you get an open A and an open G. Always have an open A with an A chord, but almost always. Anyway, so A7, all right, so E minor. So he's, by the way, I almost forgot to mention too, a lot of times with this song, he's hitting the strings with his thumb or his hand like this to give it a rhythmic percussive effect. B minor, E minor, A. Now sometimes that A, a real easy way to do it is just to put that first finger across the D, G, and B strings, bar, and still play the A string open. And that's a really efficient way or effective way sometimes to play an A chord, if you can do it that way. Okay, so then the next section, well, he'll go back to the verse and do that over again. The verse and the chorus are basically the same with the D, the G to the A, which again is a 1, 4, 5. And then the other section is a 2 to a 5. We talked about that in yesterday's video a little bit. Anyway, so then 2, 5 to 6, B minor, 2, 5, and back to this. Okay. At the end of it's either the verse or the chorus, he does this little progression where he goes B minor, A, G, D with F sharp in the bass, E minor, A, D. He does it kind of fast, which is why I use that first finger here, because I'm already using it for the B minor, and it helps me transition from the B minor to the A, to the G, to the D, to the E minor, and then E minor, a lot of times I'll just do like a little mini bar on the A and D strings, and the same is similar on the A chord, moving that first finger down to the D. So B minor, A, G, D with F sharp of the bass, E minor, A, D, and then I'm back to the main progression. All right, and so out of those 3 songs, that's the one that's a little bit more advanced than the others because it has the percussive thing happening with the right hand. It's got some hammering on and pull off kind of notes that are happening, and you know, and it's you know, utilizing some inversions of some of these chords like the D with the F sharp in the bass, and it has the B minor chord in it. The B minor chord is sometimes hard for people. We talked about that actually in the yesterday's video, so go check that out. And yeah, but it's still doable. I mean, if you had to, you can play a miniature version of that B minor that would look something like this, like a B minor 7. That would be first finger on the second fret of the A, second finger on the second fret of the G, and third finger, third fret on the B, leaving the open D string open, but the E's on either end, the low E and high E, would be muted. But you could do that as well. That actually makes for a pretty great transition from the B minor to the A, to the G, to the D, to the E minor, to the A, D. Okay, but however you do it, either one will work. Okay. Now the scale itself, you know, when he's doing those hammered on notes, he's actually using the B minor pentatonic or D major pentatonic, really the same thing. We started talking about that yesterday in terms of G major and E minor. So in the key of D, the 1 is the D and the B minor is the 6. So they're related to each other, and the scale that you use is essentially the same thing, just starting on a different note. So for a D major, now the D major pentatonic is not as obvious, I think, as the other ones, but the D major pentatonic can start with the open D, E, F sharp, A, B, and then D. Okay, that's actually not too bad, right? All right, and it gives you some notes, great notes to play with, you know, and then if you were to go down to the A string, it'd be B, A. But if I do that open G, okay, that actually brings in the diatonic, because remember from yesterday we talked about the difference with the diatonic and the pentatonic. So the pentatonic is just 5 notes. The major in particular is just a root, second, third, and then 5th and 6th. You take out the 4th and you take out the 7th. So when you do the diatonic, you add the 4th and the 7th back in there. D, E, F sharp is the 3rd, G is the 4th, A, B, and C sharp is the 7th. Okay, which, you know, you actually kind of need that note for the A chord, if nothing else. But that's the diatonic scale. By the way, this is the same note, both B's. You don't have to play it twice. Okay, it's the D major scale. Now, a better way to play that D major scale would actually be like this. If I took this, took my pinky and played 5th fret on the A string, D note, same as the open D, 5th on the A, same as the open D string. Starting there, and then play the E note with my 1st finger, F sharp with my 3rd finger, both on the D string. Pinky would be G on the 5th, 1st on the 2nd fret of the G, 3rd finger on the 4th of the G, play C sharp, 2nd fret on the B, and then play 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. That's a D major diatonic scale, but now I'm playing like this. Okay, by the way, the B minor would start here, and it would be the same. The B natural minor would scale, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about the natural minor scales a little later in the week, but or in the 2 weeks really. But that's the B natural minor scale. Same notes, just starting on B. B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. Okay, the pentatonic scale is even more useful though, in a sense, sometimes, because it limits the number of notes you have to work with, and so it makes things a little easier. And in fact, the guitar solo that Ed plays on this is actually largely based in the D major or B minor pentatonic scale. So I would start to learn that, so that eventually you can learn that solo. But essentially, if I were to play it in the 2nd position, it would be B, D, E, F sharp, A, B, 1st octave, D, E, F sharp, A, and then your B is up here. There's B. Now, if I wanted to play the typical pentatonic pattern that's up the neck, it would start on the 7th fret, because that's the B note. All right, so this is A, this is B. So I would play B, D, E, F sharp, A, B. This is 7, 10, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 10, 7, 10. Okay, and that's going to give you the notes to be able to start to play this solo as found on the record. And I'll probably do a separate video about that at some point. But that's just a good scale to start practicing, just to get your fingers acclimated to that scale. But what I usually do with students is I'll start them in the open position and get them to play the chords comfortably, and then the scales, and start moving that stuff up the neck incrementally so that they can eventually start playing anywhere up the neck they want to. And in my school group, I'm going to have an intermediate guitar course that's going to go through all of your pentatonic scales, your diatonic scales, and all the chords associated with those, as related to the caged method going up the neck. And I'll use these same keys that I'm using right now in these videos. So if you want more information about that, come and check out my group on school, skool.com/unleash your inner guitar hero, and message me there, and I will get in touch with you about what you would need to do to be involved in the intermediate guitar workshop when I do that. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit on the key of D today. I hope you like that. It's kind of a quick lesson, I guess, but I really just wanted to just kind of, give you as much information as you needed, but not too much information. So it's a lot of fun. There's lots of songs that you can play in this key. These are just a sample of a few. And for more conversation around this topic, like I said, come check out my school group. In fact, I'll have information in the description about that. And I hope to see you there. And in the meantime, keep playing in the key of D. for now.